Hi everyone, welcome to this video about using AI in technical writing in the most efficient way. We're not going to talk about prompt engineering because, well, that's the first thing that you can do to improve your technical writing with it. We are going to see how else we can use AI to improve our hackathon submissions and project descriptions, how we can improve our readmes so that they actually convey some message without being just AI slops. So why do we usually use AI when writing documentation? Usually because we just don't care enough or sometimes we think that the result that AI provides commonly is just good enough. So we just take the first thing that, for example, Cursor gives us after we build a project. It gives us a project description and we just copy paste it into our README and we are done. But if we look a bit further, we can see that we can combine the two. We can combine the AI capabilities with the technical writing principles that technical writers used for a very long time before AI became this good. So today we are going to go through these technical writing principles. We are going to look at custom GPTs and how to use them together with actions and with API schemas to improve your documentation. And we are going to see how you can optimize your documentation for LLMs and use MCP servers when building something, but also when adding documentation to MCPs so others can use the most updated versions when they are building on your tech stack. And then we are going to put it all together for a hackathon submission documentation. Now, where we need technical writing. First of all, of course, documentation. We all use documentation in this way or another, even if we don't really read it, but connect to our IDEs. We still need to write it so that we can read it from our code editors and use it to build something. We need repository descriptions, again, for the same purposes, to build something based on the READMEs, based on the instructions that we get from there. We need to provide project descriptions for hackathons and grants. That's a very valuable part of technical writing. And it's not only technical, it's also kind of marketing-y. It uses a lot of marketing principles as well, but technical writing helps you a lot. Then, of course, we need tutorials. And since recently, we also need MCP integration so that you can feed your documentation into AI tools so that developers can query them directly from the code editors. And one such example is Context 7 server, which we are going to have a look at a bit later. Now, this isn't my text. I took it from a Fundamentals of Technical Writing course, which is given at a Brno University of Technology. But I think it's a great example of how you can immediately see the human written version. Of course, the first two were written by different LLMs, ChatGPT and Perplexity. And the third one is written by a person. Why? Because we can see how short it is. And why is it short? It's not because a human is lazy. It's because it contains only the essential things, and a human knows which these essential things for this technical release update are, because a human is in the context and he or she also knows what kind of information is essential for a release update. So it doesn't give you all these unnecessary details, like, for example, listing the key points of this update in a very detailed manner. It just says that this package contains a set of improvements. So this is a set of features and no guarantee of stability. As soon as the official version is released, it will be introduced into this package as an update of this pre-release version. So it's not even actual release notes. It's a pre-release version, so you don't really need all these recommended actions, all these installation guides. All you can say is that you can install this easily as an RPM package, and a developer to whom this is aimed at knows how to do that. So they share the same context with this technical writer they basically understand each other without all these extra unnecessary details. So the key technical writing principles that this technical writer probably follows, that the audience should come first. You have to think about the reader and the goal that the reader needs to accomplish. So, of course, you need to differentiate your writing between different types of readers. If it's a developer, then you can be more technical. If it's an investor, you need to be more impact specific. So you need to talk more about the results and the impacts that your project introduces rather than the technical stack and the instructions on how to deploy it. But you also need to be very conscious about the goal that the reader needs to accomplish, and all your words need to lead to this goal. You don't need to list all kinds of details describing this project if these details don't lead to the goal that the reader is looking for in this documentation. Then it should be very easily scanned. So it shouldn't be just a block of text, but AI does this very well. We see that it introduces very nice headers and splits into sections. We just need to be very cautious to check for adding extra points, extra bullet points, extra blocks of text, but the structure is usually very well done with AI. Then the most important, probably, technical writing principle is clarity and minimalism. So you need to write only what needs to be said. And this is, again, about thinking about the reader, about their goal, and also about being very pragmatic with your words. So you need to only write the instructions that lead to the reader's goal without without any emotional words, without any details about like previous maybe versions or something else. Accuracy, of course, you should version control your documentation, and it's especially important now that you're adding your documentation to MCP servers. And you should think about the voice, using active verbs instead of passive. You can actually just import one of the good style guides you can find on the internet, for example Google Style Guide, into your custom GPT that you're going to use when creating documentation, and it's going to follow all these stylistic advices. Now AI, we know that AI can think. We know that AI cannot think. It can only predict the next token. That's why these key writing principles are important for you to keep in mind, and because you can give the task to AI, but at the same time you need to concentrate on helping the reader accomplish their goal in as few words as possible. Check for hallucinations, cut all the AI fluff, cut all the bloated texts, and stay very pragmatic. What is AI fluff? Well, it's text with low information value, or it's all kinds of emotional evaluations, unnecessary modifiers, saying things like it's revolutionary or it's awesome. The text should convey this without these words. So a reader should think to themselves, oh, I think this kind of product is really revolutionary, without seeing the word revolutionary anywhere in the documentation. Even if it's some kind of selling text like a hackathon submission or a grant application, don't use very emotional evaluation words and modifiers. So these are very nice examples of how you can strike the balance between being too wordy and too minimalist. So for example, when you are starting a table about cats, a very wordy option would be, below there is a table that contains a list of cats. A better way to say this would be, the following table lists cats. And the best version for technical writing would be to say table 1, column cats. But don't go too far with the minimalist style, and don't just say cats, because it lacks context. Without table 1, colon cats, without this part that it is a table, we don't know what cats are doing here, why are we talking about cats, and what to expect. So we need to provide at least some context about what's going on, and we need to be as precise and concise as possible. The next sentence is a very important thing to bear in mind, because if you're writing documentation, then it's probably going to be localized as well, translated into different languages. And this is where you can go too far with being very short, because whenever you shorten something, you cut the context and cut all these words that are dependent on other words. So all the words in our languages have dependencies between them, and sometimes we expect the next word, and sometimes we can just fill in the gap without it being said. But the differences between different languages is that these gaps are expected differently. So let me give you an example. You can read the bad version. It's in order to become a better technical writer, you should adhere to the following 5 simple rules and principles. This is too many words. And in order to, you should adhere. So this is very polite, but very long. The best way would be to say, to become a better technical writer, follow these rules, colon. And why is it better? Because it uses active voice. It doesn't have to be very polite. You don't have to say you should adhere. Follow is a great substitute for this whole phrase. And it uses just an active verb, and that's it. But writing, become a better technical writer by, colon, is very hard to localize because, well, first, TW instead of technical writer, what is it in other languages? Then by, colon, is the worst thing you can do for a localizing engineer, because this is translated in different languages differently. Sometimes this kind of dependency isn't expressed with the same word. So sometimes in other languages it will be with. In other languages, it can be even in or any other preposition. So the dependencies between verbs and prepositions are different in different languages. That's why by is going to be translated as an analog of by in another language, but the dependency is going to be different. So it wouldn't mean the same. And that is why it's very hard to localize it like that. So then the next line is a very good example of how you need to stay pragmatic and think about the goal that the reader has. So the goal that the reader has here is how to create a new user using this line. So we need to say it instead of enter, because enter doesn't really mean that you are going to create a new user using this line. That's why the pragmatic and short way to convey this message would be just create a new user. And yeah, finally, just don't be ambiguous. To strike the right level between wordiness and minimalism, try to not be too short. And this is just a lovely example of how being pragmatic in your writing can lead to you becoming a very strange letter writer or a communicator in general. Because the most pragmatic way would be the, well, shortest and not really polite. But I find this example very nice to see what kind of things we want to cut when we are looking at a technical writing piece. For example, we don't want to be too redundant. We don't want to use future tense or past tense. We don't want to use contractions or write the unnecessary details. We don't want to write sentences that don't add any meaning, any pragmatic information. And that's why instead of being very polite and writing, I wanted to thank you so much for the beautiful Angora sweater you sent me for my birthday, blah, blah. We are just writing thank you for the sweater as a technical writer. Now let's move to a more practical part of this video and see how you can use ChatGPT in a better way, not just to prompt, but to create custom GPTs that can help you with your readmes, with your hackathon submissions, any kind of technical writing piece that you need. And to do that, let me share my screen. So this is a custom GPT that I've just created. This is called Tech Describe, and this is a Doxygen for smart contracts. A Doxygen is a very nice product, actually. I'm going to show you a bit later. It creates documentation out of your code. It comments your code, creates diagrams. So this is a very lovely device to use. if you want to work with languages like C+, or it does, I guess, JavaScript, Python, so all the Web 2 languages, but it doesn't have Solidity, doesn't have Rust. So if you need to do the same things like comment code or create readmes or diagrams, of course you can create your own tool like that. And this is what I was trying to do with this custom GPT. I provided a lot of instructions for it, and some of these instructions just include a style guide, just use the Google style guide. Some of these about how to use queries for an MCP server that I connect in the actions. And well, mainly here in the instructions, I talk about that because it's very important so that it doesn't hallucinate API requests and double checks everything with me before accessing those documentations. And so basically, this is the tool that I want to use. I want to have different kinds of example code. So I'm providing it with a sample code from NeoNVM, different kinds of contracts where it can learn how NeoNVM uses Solidity to access Solana programs, and also readmes that describe composability feature of NeoNVM so that it learns from this knowledge as well as the documentation that we connect through an MCP server. And this is the action that I create for it to access the current documentation. So this is for an context 7 MCP. I'm going to show you the interface of this context 7 a bit later. But basically, to create this action, you just need to provide your API key. You get it after you sign up with this MCP server. Then you create a schema. You can use the same ChatGPT to help you create the schema. And this schema just helps me use the get method to access the correct documentation. And I'm using this MCP server specifically to get the most updated version of the documentation because, well, of course, you can just copy paste the docs in the knowledge in the context, but this way you are going to get it automatically. So this is a very efficient way to do that. Now, let's try generating, for example, this thing. Create a README for a WAGMI-based dApp that shows wallet connect and transaction signing. I also have specific instructions for it to create READMEs, and let's see if it's going to follow them. Okay, so it's creating a README, but I'm not seeing that it read the MCP server. So it just goes ahead and does it. I guess it's because I already asked it to do that before, so it already did the search. Yes, so it's just providing us with a README. Okay, let's try another prompt. Comment a TypeScript snippet using official Solana docs. Okay. Yes, so this is where it accesses the MCP server to get the most up-to-date Solana documentation on system program. Yes. Okay, so, and what it's done, it commented our little code snippet using the system program documentation. Okay. And yeah, as you can see, this is a pretty detailed description. And it also provides us with references. And Now, yeah, we can also ask it to create a README out of this, or yeah, wrap the instruction inside a full transaction and send this transaction. So we can continue working with it. But basically, one of the things that we were hoping it would do, it does. Okay, so let's move on. Yeah, the next thing that I briefly wanted to mention is that these days you need to optimize your documentation for LLMs. And what it entails is creating an LLMs.txt file and adding it to your domain root so that LLMs know how to parse your website with documentation and get the information from it. Yeah, this is just to keep in mind if you are working on the product documentation and want to optimize for LLMs instead of SEO, as we all did before LLMs. And now I'd like to show you this MCP server that I connected my ChatGPT to. This is a Context 7 MCP. So wait a second, just let me share my screen. So this is it. You get your API address, API key when you sign up. And you are going to be able to fetch all kinds of libraries that are added to this MCP server from your code editor directly. You can, of course, here search for the right documentation, and it has Solana documentation as well as all the more popular ones. And yeah, if you click on MCP server link, you're going to go to its GitHub page, and in this GitHub page, you're going to be able to see wait a second, I'm going to show it to you as well. Yeah, all kinds of instructions. Yes, here you're going to see the instructions on how to add this MCP to your code editors. And you can just click add to cursor or install in VS Code and tell cursor to use Context 7 instead of just looking for documentation online. And this way you're going to be able to get the most current updates when you're building. So, but at the same time, you need to add your own documentation to it, and you can do this either by adding a GitHub repo with an MD file that contains the documentation, or this llm.txt file that we talked before when we talked about optimization, or even connect a website with the documentation, and it's going to be parsed here in this MCP server. Now to your homework. So the homework will be to create a selling hackathon submission description using any project you're working on right now. And you can do this by following these simple rules and try to use ChatGPT, a custom GPT, to streamline this process, make it faster, but also keep in mind all those technical writing principles we talked about in the beginning. So keep the style to this pragmatic, minimalist kind of voice. Keep in mind the goal of the reader and the audience in general. And check for hallucinations, check not to get AI fluff, cut all the unnecessary or sentimental emotional evaluation kind of modifiers. And yeah, the structure should be very simple. Let's start with just these 4 things. First, think of a clear but catchy title. So a hackathon submission isn't just clear technical writing. It should have some sort of persuasive storytelling. So it should be a bit of a interesting, curious read for the judges. And that's why your title should be catchy as well as very clear. And here we can see, for example, ERC24 SPL token, Solana speed, Ethereum simplicity. This kind of title is very clear if you are submitting this to a Solana hackathon, for example, because they're going to know, okay, this is about an SPL token, but at the same time, they're introducing an Ethereum token standard here, and this is kind of a hybrid token standard. Okay, that might be interesting. Then in the next thing, in the one-liner, you create a very short, 15 words or less elevator pitch. This is where you explain what you mean exactly to solve with this project. And for example, here we can say trade USDC on Solana DEXs from your favorite Ethereum wallet with no bridges or overhead. So here we are saying what a user is going to get and what kind of benefit a user is getting in comparison to what it has now, for example. So what kind of pain point we are solving with this project. And then you elaborate on this solving the pain point in the value proposition, where you write why your solution matters. And you don't just describe what you build, but also describe why it's awesome without saying the word awesome. The reader should understand why it's awesome, why it's revolutionary without seeing these words in the submission. So focus on this wow factor and conveying it with what you do and how you do it without using any emotional evaluation kind of modifiers. So state the problem. What's the current state of the user pain point? For example, current cross-chain trading is slow, clunky, and intimidating. Intimidating is actually too much of an emotional word here. I would actually remove it. Then the solution is ERC24 SPL token makes trading feel instant and familiar with Ethereum UX and Solana performance. Again, maybe this is a bit too touchy-feely with this feel instant. Maybe we can tone it down a bit, but still keep the wow factor, basically something new that we are introducing with the solution. And why it matters? Because users get the speed they expect with no need to learn new tools. And then a very important part of this project description is going to be a demo flow where you show how exactly a user will use your product and your solution. And you can do that in a storyboard. A very good way would be to, of course, include a video, but we are going to talk about videos in the next workshop where we are going to talk about pitches as well. So this is more about a storyboard description where you frame this user journey with showing the beginning of its journey, like opening an app, then doing the action that you developed and seeing the magical result, the instant result that they were hoping for. So good luck with this task. And you can also, of course, try using context 7 in your code editor to fetch current docs when you are combining everything you have in your project description into this one README. And use the materials we provide here. Try this context 7 MCP server to get, for example, Solana documentation. Try building a custom GPT so that you can streamline this process and then rely on it more when composing these kind of readmes. And submit your homework via Discord in the VID channel. If you don't want to submit in a VID channel, you can always send in DMs. So thank you very much for your time. Good luck with the documentation. Bye.